repatriation flights from United States into Venezuela, which so far had transported 14,000 Venezuelan illegal migrants, have been suspended. Donald Trump tweeted that he would no longer use Venezuelan airspace. Therefore, there is no longer a legal basis providing entry to deportation flights originated from the United States. United States will now have a hassle as they are seeking to deport hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans out of the United States, and there is no longer an agreement which had already been signed by Special Envoy Richard Grenell and President Nicolás Maduro last January 31st, which provided grounds for such deportations. Donald Trump unilaterally stopped the repatriation agreement on November 29, 2025. 10 months of uninterrupted repatriations have come to an end. Venezuelan illegal migrants will be used by United States authorities as a piece of negotiation on whatever deal they choose to harass Venezuela. Donald Trump's request to the international community for not using Venezuelan airspace, fortunately, has not been obeyed. FIR Maiquetía Flight Information Region Maiquetía has been used by Copa Airlines, including for transitioning passage between Panama City and Paramaribo, Suriname flights, which cover the full length of Venezuelan airspace from west to east. Domestic flights have operated as usual, and international flights through airlines which chose not to leave their passengers stranded continued as normal. A picture of Donald Trump on his golf club in Florida looks extremely unhealthy. Arrogant people tend to become extremely mean and dictatorial in moments prior to their death, as they see that they are not eternal, as they see their time is coming, and they tend to convey their frustration upon everybody else. And these random tweets intending to close the airspace of a sovereign nation such as Venezuela might reflect Donald Trump's personal inner deficiencies. International community reaction in favor of Venezuela's sovereignty and in favor of Venezuela's right of keeping open our airspace was provided by the Foreign Minister of Iran and the Foreign Minister of Cuba, as well as from the ALBA Bolivarian Alliance of Nations. In all cases, it is evident that United States is trying to order non-United States persons and companies on usage of a sovereign airspace that is not property of United States. Venezuelan airspace is Venezuela's. The only authority recognized for usage of Venezuelan airspace is INAC, Instituto Nacional de Aeronáutica Civil. Neither FAA nor the President of the United States have any bearing on usage of Venezuelan airspace. International flight companies seeking to avoid usage of Venezuelan airspace and not honoring their contracts to move passengers and customers will have their licenses revoked. Already several airlines have lost landing rights into Venezuela, including LATAM, Avianca, Iberia, TAP Air Portugal, Turkish Airlines, and GOL. Venezuelan airspace remains open to companies like Bolivian Airlines, Wingo, Copa, Acerca, Láser, Estelar, and Conviasa. Negotiations for dialogue between Donald Trump and Nicolás Maduro remain open as always. The international community would prefer a diplomatic solution between Venezuela and the United States. The most likely scenario would be that as United States no longer can fly deportees back into Venezuela due to Donald Trump's own fault, they will have to agree on resuming deportations on terms that will likely become more favorable to Venezuela, as we always honored our commitments while Donald Trump unilaterally dismissed usage of Venezuelan airspace, whose direct consequence was a blockage of the United States administration commitment to speedy and massive deportations. United States is now urged to recognize openness of Venezuelan airspace if it wants to continue deporting Venezuelan illegal migrants back into Venezuela. This theater of pretending to close an airspace which is not under your sovereignty just provided additional noise and no substantial upside or downside risks to either dialogue or war. United States military flights continue operating close to Venezuelan space as usual. United States ships continue patrolling Caribbean Sea, and rumors of a possible conversation between Presidents Nicolás Maduro and Donald Trump continue being discussed, as the Venezuelan side definitely rejects the possibility of performing such a face-to-face meeting in the United States. If Nicolás Maduro and Donald Trump were to meet, it would necessarily involve a third country. Regime change efforts are desperately trying to produce narratives conducive to their dreams. To this date, some regime change promoters go as far as 1992 initial revolutionary activities in Venezuela to demand regime change now. Venezuelan aviation recently celebrated its 33rd anniversary, commemorating activities leading to its founding on November 27, 1992. Today's regime promoters deplore the birth of modern Venezuelan aviation. We are concluding that there are some people whose resentment is permanent and they will forever despise Venezuela's constitutional government, and they will by all means seek regime change through any excuse acceptable. These kind of people have no solution. There is no point in arguing against them, and they should either leave the country or stop suffering. The plight of Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran are similar. The three countries are among the most vocal adversaries of United States hegemony. Cuba is not well known for possessing natural resources, unlike Iran or Venezuela, which would explain why Cuba is seldom a target for United States military aggression. However, Iran and Venezuela count with significant petroleum and gas resources, and both countries have a need of defending their sovereignty. What is most amazing is that less than 24 hours after Donald Trump imploring closure of Venezuelan airspace, nothing really has happened. Limited flights still use Venezuelan airspace, and diplomatic focus now shifts on how to provide new airlines an opportunity for flying either charter or scheduled flights. President Nicolás Maduro announced a special program for addressing the travel needs of people who need to fly out of Venezuela or returning to Venezuela, as during the events of the last few days, their reservations have been cancelled. Perhaps new flights will be chartered for this emergency. A long-term solution, however, would require existing airlines increasing their frequencies of flights or welcoming new airlines to use Venezuelan airspace, which would provide them access to a very lucrative market of Venezuelans always curious to travel around the world. Venezuela is also expected to increase its role as a tourism destination for people from around the world who, until recently, did not even know that Venezuela existed as a country. And this regime change obsession by Donald Trump and Marco Rubio has made Venezuela a permanent headline worldwide. People become curious, and people are likely to travel into Venezuela as they realize that this is a real, peaceful country with lots of natural beauties, hospitable people, great food, great climate, great music, and a diversity of ecosystems. Margarita Island has already been receiving tourists from Poland, Russia, Iran, and many exotic countries. Venezuela looks bound to become a melting pot of Eastern Hemisphere cultures within the Western Hemisphere, which will strengthen our historical openness to universal values of humankind. Donald Trump and extremists, fanatics of exclusively Western civilization are no longer relevant, as Venezuelan culture has already transcended Western limitations and is becoming open to Eastern innovations. Donald Trump's options are becoming scant. He has a choice of either retreating or attacking. This warning period has been extremely lengthy. So many ultimatums have been provided that it would not be surprising if in a couple of days Donald Trump issues yet another ultimatum with no follow-up. Military preparations in Trinidad and Tobago and Dominican Republic show presidencies and prime ministries in those two island countries giving up their independence. CARICOM is expected to meet within the next few days on the occasion of welcoming Prime Minister Friday from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and it should be a great opportunity to address United States military involvement in both Dominican Republic and Trinidad and Tobago. While countries from Central America, South America, and the Caribbean further recognize the additions and variety provided by Russian, Iranian, and Chinese trade and military assets for common defense. Caribbean and Central American and South American countries, as usual, will be left with the necessity of a dialogue that adds up militaries from powers that usually fight among themselves, and we will need to merge our militaries into a common defense zone. The Caribbean lacks its own common defense. We have yielded to the excuse that we were a zone of peace, confusing peace as vulnerability. It is clear that Venezuela will spend several years rearming. President Nicolás Maduro has provided a 10-year plan so that we increase our oil production from 1 million to 4 million barrels a day. However, Venezuela could easily reach 10 million barrels a day, even exceeding Saudi Arabia, because Venezuela's oil reserves are higher than Saudi Arabia's. Venezuela needs a massive increase in its oil production, which will provide enough revenue for improving Venezuelan military to counter United States' expected increase of military forces against Caribbean countries until at least the year 2028. As Venezuela becomes a regional power in the Caribbean and diminishes the gap between Venezuelan and United States forces, an agreement will need to be made between Caribbean countries and regional powers, United States and Venezuela, so that a shared military infrastructure can guarantee peace in the region. For that to happen, however, Venezuela must credibly repel all regime change attempts that will be made from the United States. Iran, during many years, was also the object of regime change attempts, and as Iranian's military has fortified regime change attempts in Iran have become less common. The world is nevertheless preparing for the forthcoming Taiwan return into mainland China, which could happen either peacefully or through war. Chinese military has produced many warships which is being deployed across the Western Pacific and most recently into the Caribbean. Venezuela's military will be necessary not only for defending Venezuela from United States regime change attempts of aggression, but also because Venezuela will eventually need to help allies such as China, Iran, or Russia in their own armed conflicts in other parts of the world, as the United States and Europe refuse to give up their expired superpower status. Venezuela's long-term plan of increasing oil production to 4 million barrels a day on an initial stage and to 10 million barrels a day on a longer-term stage will propose economic development for Venezuelan population and an increased presence in military conflicts around the world as multipolarity becomes dominant and NATO countries retreat. Venezuela's success over the United States in this Caribbean war will signal a pivot point between expired United States unipolarity to third world country based multipolarity. Once our long-term objectives of multilateralism are established, we can turn back to our immediate concerns of providing emergency short-term transportation arrangements for passengers stranded on their way from or into Venezuela. While United States authorities, as they increasingly realize that an armed invasion into Venezuela will be long, costly, and deadly, they will now have to start all over again to produce new arrangements for deporting Venezuelan migrants of the United States, which was successfully done until yesterday when Donald Trump childishly decided to abort deportations of Venezuelans, which was actually his utmost priority. Donald Trump thought he was going to close Venezuela's airspace. Not only he let Venezuela's airspace open, but he relinquished his only foreign policy goal so far that he previously held with Venezuela, which was to count on us as reliable recipients of illegal migrants. United States is now on its own, and they will have to see how they deal with their illegal migration problem.